The law of ether is what keeps the universe connected and in oneness with everything. Souls that agree to an alien creation forsake divine eternal matrimony. This old matrix reality that we still find ourselves in, is only being kept in absolution by the elements that have been turned into knowledge by the souls here, which have structured the construct of the current reality filled with rules, laws, and limitations. The elements are not merely their physical representations within the hologram, as something you can touch, feel, hear, instruments, taste, or see. They are forces that are forever co-creating and are primordially inert within the constitution of everything that is, the soul, the whole. Remember that the soul is ultimately everything in the universe that remains connected in one consciousness via the first element, namely ether. This is the source of oneness. Oneness and the connection of everything in the universe is maintained by ether. Oneness is a universal law that has been broken by billions of souls who have embraced Lucifer's creation. By accepting and partaking in the New World Order matrix, you break ether, in other words, you break a universal law, the connection and resulting harmony in everything, by embracing a creation that is not of your own making, ultimately not one with you, in a stark contention against the one, the whole. The axiom of the matrix is divide and rule, and anyone with knowledge of the pyramid hierarchy that forms the status quo should know quite well of the separation it causes, which is in direct opposition of ether. The results of this aftermath is obviously disastrous, as we find ourselves in a dog-eat-dog reality, where harmony is absent. Due to the incepted deception leaving us in ignorance, fear, and unconsciousness, many of us have been led to embrace separation, partake in a system that breeds evil, also known as the biggest lie in the universe. Winning was losing all along. The Matrix, through the educational indoctrinational system, steals your elements and, with that, your divine mystical powers to manifest and have your own creation, instead of the creation of the architect. Highly successful people that have become rich by harmonizing with the Creator's reality and playing by the rules of the Matrix are among the most unconscious people on the planet. These are the people that have become totally possessed by their identities, which are essentially agents in their own rights. The agents uphold the status quo of the Matrix above anything else. You have to be unconscious in order to win inside the Matrix. Why? Because the only way to succeed is to break the unwritten soul contract, that of oneness and immortality, and for what? A temporary illusion where an addiction to the five senses can be fulfilled until the time comes for your body to die, and in the ground it goes. Agents, identities, personas, are all unconscious and totally linked up to the mainframe management. The aftermath of breaking ether is obviously the loss of soul connection, which is the source of all suffering, evil, and relativity. The Creator's objective, accomplished. All your failures were blessings. Failure and loss, over and over again in the reality of the Matrix, is by no means an occurrence to be ashamed of. In fact, all those that have not been able to become successful inside the Matrix are the real soul people. These are the people that knew deep down of the law of ether and never wanted to break it by agreeing to an evil foreign reality based on separation, that was shoved down everyone's throats. Absolutes are not unobtainable. The notion of absolutes is another concept that has been made very confusing by disinformation. Philosophical works and even the founder of Scientology, that is, one of the biggest agents of the Creator, Mr. L. Ron Hubbard, proposed that absolutes are unobtainable. Millions, if not billions of people on Earth, unconsciously agree with this false notion. It spells out that you cannot find absolute truths in this reality, and that you cannot have an absolute existence, only relative. The Creator, through Mr. Hubbard and many other philosophers, hypothesized and led mankind into believing that absolutes are only possible in fairy tales. The disastrous effect can be witnessed in this reality, where millions are caught in an absolute reality involving evil and suffering. For all those that say absolutes are unobtainable, I argue that the very axiom absolutes are unobtainable is an absolute in itself. That means absolutes are obtainable, and that, of course, also means that you cannot have an absolute of pure evil and that you have made all evil possible. This is the biggest lie in the system. This is the unconscious agreement that we all have, due to the lack of light and sight. If we want a world with no rules, no limitations, and no laws, then that is obtainable and can be made absolute by reversing all the agreements we have made with the matrix system, even those we were not consciously aware of. You have to realize that all axioms are half-truths and essentially spells that keep everyone spellbound and effective to the primary matrix. All axioms stem from the tree of knowledge that has bared its fruits since the inception of religion, which has programmed the collective unconscious machine into blind enslavement to knowledge that has been energized by consciousness for millions of years. This is called transforming your elements into knowledge, to which you are then subjectified. We have been fooled to create our own prisons. Today we are at a tipping point where the truth inside the majority is becoming more and more conscious at an ever-increasing rate. When Gandhi said, "When one man has the truth, he is in a majority," he meant that one man with the truth is ultimately inside every man on earth, and that outside of time this truth can only reign supreme and liberate all with its resulting effect, that is, freedom power. Real absolutes are eternal, just like the soul. The only absolute is the soul, the five elements. Why is it that you think crystals and gemstones can show us obsolete constructs in our consciousness and reveal to us unconscious aspects of ourselves that need attention or light? This is because they do not lie, they have the five elements within them, which are absolute. Crystals are formed by earth, melted by fire, and restructured by air or oxygen and water. These absolute forces of creation are the only true reality existent in our plane. Everything else is just relative. These forces carry on creating unhindered into infinity. Unfortunately, crystals do not work for everyone as they cannot connect to a soul that is totally disconnected from consciousness, that is, the five elements, also known as a clone. Not a clone in the physical sense, but a clone resulting from the total immersion of matrix-based knowledge that turns a soul into a copy of the sorcery, a duplicate. A soul robbed by its elements, is turned into a mortal or a spirit. The term master of the elements has been coined by various sages of bygone years, yet very few have fully grasped what exactly it means to be a master of the elements. The master of the elements can create any reality at will, because he or she possesses the seed force of creation and can manifest any universe that is concurrent to the internal domain and not relative to the external. Just as the elements create in nature, the mountains and the forests, so can we do the same. All we need to do is to reverse what we have created, the matrix, back to the five elements. Power, glory, and triumph will be regained and paradise lost will become paradise found. When one goes through the process of turning your elements into knowledge, you check into the matrix and you cannot check out. Hotel California. The only way to reverse this process is to re-enter the source of the sorcery. One has to unlearn all of the knowledge by time traveling back to the past, in order to undo all of the damage it has caused to the remainder of your time track. This is how you save yourself from the future, into the past. Depending on the amount of academia you have falsely turned absolute in your life, there lies the source of the reality we encounter externally. It is important not to individualize yourself for this catastrophe. This is because of the one, that we are all one, and that at the very moment the majority are still energizing the matrix into existence unconsciously. As I have mentioned before, the truth is inside the majority, and it is only a matter of time before the flame of truth is lit inside everyone. There are enough beings on this planet now that hold the absolute truth, and due to the universal law of oneness, like algae, this will arise in all. We have reached the deadline in this lifetime. In the past, we had the pyramid system mainframe in oneness with all. Now there are those that have turned the entire system construct back to the 5 elements, the unconscious into consciousness, by conscientizing the entire system and breaking the status quo. Once it is done by one individual in metaphysics, it is done for all. There is no need to go and take on a Save the World program. Eventually, everything comes back to consciousness, the first will be the last and the last will be the first. Every grain of sand will fall in its right place.